Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to our panelists for being here. I have the privilege of representing a big Navy district down in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and wanted to thank you all for continuing to prioritize the quality of life, quality of service measures that we spent so much time on last Congress. That continues to be a priority of mine as well. So many of my colleagues have talked about shipbuilding and ship repair during this session, and technology integration, use of unmanned and drones. So thank you for keeping that also on the top of your list of things to do. I wanted to take a few minutes though and talk about the importance of the East Coast Navy. And we see when we turn on the news and we for example, are watching our F-18s drop bombs on the Houthis in Yemen, or there's something that arises in the world, and we frequently send our aircraft carriers and our battle groups and our air wings from the East Coast. And I know we recently welcomed home the Truman and before that the Eisenhower battle groups, and a lot of activity between what's happening in the Baltic Sea with Russians and their submarines to what's continuing to happen in the Middle East and the Red Sea and Israel. So we can't understate the importance of the East Coast. And I represent the East Coast Master Jet Base, which is woefully underappreciated, woefully not taken care of. So I just wanted to hear from you all, because you all are all the leadership of our naval services. Admiral Kilby, can you please tell me what you think is the importance of the East Coast Navy in projecting American strength and deterrence?
Rep. Kiggans, thanks for that question. Quick soundbite on Truman. You know, she defended herself or other ships or another country 160 times on her deployment. She conducted 670 strikes from the air or from the sea into Yemen, and she conducted the biggest strike in the history of the world from a single aircraft carrier into Somalia. 8 named operations, 3 different combatant commanders, so I double down on what your statement is and concur. And Master Jet Base Oceana is a big portion of that, in addition to all the infrastructure at Hampton Roads, which is really all services, but primarily Navy, between the Navy base and Oceana.
Our aircraft carriers, just to echo that, continue to be tip of the spear. We can get America's might there in a matter of days. There's nothing that can replace that. And do you think that the East Coast Master Jet Base then needs F-35s and needs our next generation of strike fighter?
I think it needs to keep up with the Navy just like the West Coast in all respects, and I think it needs to be maintained. So there's a infrastructure thing that the Secretary and I are after, to include hangars and all runways and piers and all those things. And I when I was the Deputy Commander of Fleet Forces, I went to Master Jet Base Oceana and concur wholeheartedly with what you're saying.
So can I get your commitment in the strategic laydown planning that will be happening very soon, that will be prioritized, our East Coast Master Jet Base? I know the Marines are being taken care of. They have, I believe, 4 F-35 squadrons. The Navy has 0 right now. We have 0 commitment from the Navy saying that they will get F-35s and will get next generation strike fighters, and it's becoming extremely frustrating.
I commit to you to look at that and continue to work for that end state, ma'am.
And then I also wanted to echo what my colleague had previously said, to open the news the other day and see that the Navy, we had $500 million that was being taken away from us from the Department of Defense to be committed to F-47s that the Air Force had, when Congress and Armed Services Committee had specifically allocated that money for next generation strike fighters. We need that money for a lot of reasons. China is already testing and flying J-50s and J-36 fighters, which is their 6th generation fighter. The Navy, to be competitive with that, has got to make that investment. I know the Air Force has got a lot of needs as well, but Secretary Phelan, can you please one more time address what you are doing to push back on that Department of Defense statement that they made that said they weren't going to take away the Congress appropriated money and give it to the Air Force?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. Look, as I said, we continue to look at the air wing of the future and the capabilities of 6th Gen and what that means. It's part of the whole force posture we're looking at between manned and unmanned and those different platforms and what makes the most sense. So I look forward to working with you as we develop those plans.
And we cannot do the missions that we just previously talked about, that the Truman has just accomplished in the Red Sea, without that next generation strike fighter money allocated. So please prioritize that. On top of that, and in closing, just wanted to put in my 2 cents about naval aviation training. We need T-45 replacements. That needs to be added to the top of the priority list. We cannot take between 3 and 4 years to train naval aviators and Marine Corps aviators, it's taking too long, and we need that Navy commitment. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Maryland, Ms. Elfreth.